Thanks everybody so much for being a part of our fourth annual Beginning Again retreat. We're going to move into a conversation first about healing, and then career, and then what's next. And Jennifer is going to moderate a conversation about healing and career. Okay, so earlier today, we talked about how do we define grieving. So I thought it would be interesting to think about, well, what is healing? How do we define healing? And I'm curious what you think, Jennifer, when you think about healing. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, when I think about healing, it's like in the sort of generic definition is like becoming whole again.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I don't know that we can become whole again because we're missing something, right?
yeah.
But I think we can become as whole as we can. So for me, healing is being able to share my experience and find meaning in, you know, my life and helping other people get through it.
You know what I think is interesting about healing is that it's not just an after caregiving experience. I think a caregiving experience could break your day, could break your heart, could break your life. And we are looking for healing throughout a caregiving experience. And I think about healing as part of self-care during caregiving. So often people will say, well, just go for a walk. Well, sometimes your heart is so heavy that the idea of bringing your heavy heart onto a walk, it just feels impossible. So we really have to think through, what does self-care during caregiving look like for me? What works for me? So we go through a healing process throughout caregiving, and then there's the death, and it's a new healing experience. And it's interesting to think about wholeness with emptiness.
Well, the example that I'm thinking of, which on the surface doesn't seem appropriate, but like when my dad died, he was a country music fan, which never appealed to me, but I liked it because he liked it. And I couldn't listen to any kind of music for a year after he died. Like immediate tears. And we used so much music in his memorial. I just couldn't do it. And then one day I turned the radio on and I could listen. And I feel like that's a moment of healing. Like, okay, gotten through that piece.
Yeah, you know, that's interesting. I write good morning messages on our community Caring Our Way, and then I post them on Facebook too and a couple other places. And I just write them Monday through Friday. And I started writing them in 2010, and I started on Twitter, and then I moved away from Twitter and I just kept writing them. My brother died on a Monday morning after I'd written a good morning message, and I couldn't write a good morning message for 6 months.
Wow.
And the day I could write a good morning message was February 18th, which was his birthday.
Hmm.
And I woke up and I thought, oh, I can write a good morning message. That's really interesting to think about what stops for us, and then
Yeah.
when is it ready to start? Christine, go ahead.
So that's interesting. So I did a lot of things with my mother, but one of them that we really enjoyed was sports, and we watched a lot of baseball. Being from Chicago, Cubs, Sox, and we had a friend that we met through my brother, who was a sportscaster in Cleveland, who a baseball player that became like family to us. So we saw a lot of baseball. I could not really watch Major League Baseball up until last year because it was something that we shared and had fun with and enjoyed. Um, and I really, I don't watch this, like I said, I don't watch it as regularly still, but I do find that watching just these playoffs, not that necessarily they're teams that I really follow or have followed, but I do find that I'm kind of getting back that joy of watching that sport again. And it is weird. Like, you don't realize that you've drawn away from something until you try to go back to it. And so that's one of the things that I realized, like, wow, I just, because my friend that I talked about earlier, he and I got probably to be friends too, because we're really into sports and watching sports and stuff. And he'd say to me, like, how do you not know these players? And how do you not know this? And I'm like, because I literally have not paid attention to baseball since my mom passed away. So I get that.
You know what I think is just a good reminder for us is that it's all temporary. Now,
Mhm.
that actually drove me nuts during a caregiving experience when I would hear it's all temporary. That made me so crazy. I don't know why, but I thought that is not reflective of my experience because this seems permanent.
Mhm.
Then after caregiving ended, I thought, okay, maybe I can think a little differently about this idea that it's all temporary. And I think it can help us to remember that something may stop for us after a Carrie's death, and it may come back for us. So it's this idea that it's not forever. Like things won't stop for us forever. We'll be able to move on or bring it back to us or enjoy it again. It's not forever. So I think this is helpful when we think about how do we define healing. And maybe healing is when we reconnect or connect in a way that either brings us comfort or joy or happiness or peace, could be whatever that emotion is. I'm going to share some resources that we have available for you. One of the resources is a daily healing plan, and it's a process of finding healing through 3 steps. And it's really reflective of we're going to heal through lots of different experiences. So the first step is to name what hurts. So for instance, during the holidays, it might hurt because this might be the first holiday you're making Christmas cookies without your Carrie. So that hurts. And then you name how you're healing. So I'm going to heal through that hurt by talking to my sister in the morning of traditionally the day that we would make cookies. And what I want to heal to, so the third step is where do you want to go with this healing? I want to heal to feeling surrounded by love. So it's this idea that we're missing something because it connected us to something happy, joyful, comforting, connected us to love. So if I made Christmas cookies with my mom every year, that was an experience of shared love. So I can name that hurt. I can create a strategy to help manage that hurt with the idea that I want to go to feeling surrounded by love, because that's what I miss. Yeah, that's interesting, Pamela. Jennifer and I had a conversation around this idea of I'm not sure how to bring in happiness during a time of grieving. And we might feel like I should be unhappy, but I also think sometimes people want you to be happy and you think I'm not happy in this moment. And Jennifer, for you it was going to the movies with friends.
Yeah. About a month after my dad died, my friends wanted to get me out of the house and take me to a movie. And I think it was like a funny movie like Bridesmaids or something that would have, distracted me. And I was willing and I went, and the whole movie I was just angry because it was like, I shouldn't be here. This is too soon. Why is everyone laughing? Like I did not feel like laughing. And I loved being around my friends and I loved that they were doing that for me, but it was the wrong kind of support. And I couldn't have known that, until I was in it. Yeah.
That's the other piece about it is you feel like, okay, well, I'll try this. And it might not be the right thing to try on.
Yeah.
And I really feel like we can be comforted by an exit strategy. if we're trying something on, and if it's not the right fit, thinking through what's an exit strategy we could use. So for instance, it's just excusing yourself to go to the bathroom and then taking your time as you walk up the long movie theater aisle over to the bathroom, you know, taking your time in the bathroom and coming out, maybe stopping to get something at the snack bar. And that could be your temporary exit strategy before you get back to your seat and then feel like, okay, this isn't right for me and I took a break. Sometimes we go to events or get-togethers and we think it's good to get out of the house. That's what everybody says. It's good to get out of the house. Well, sometimes it's not good to get out of the house. But anyway, so you try it and then you're out of the house and thinking, I can't be here. Interesting that it was anger for you, Jennifer. And I think sometimes it's anger and sometimes it's tears. Sometimes it's frustration and sometimes it's feeling disconnected, displaced, like I don't belong here.
Yeah.
And then having this exit strategy and words to use. Thank you so much for having me. It's time to go. I'll give you a call in the morning or something like that.
I know for me, like the first year, I took my own car to any event that I was going, even with my partner. I was like, I'm going to have an out. And that was the plan. And sometimes I used it and sometimes I didn't, you know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But it's so nice to have that option so you don't feel compelled to stay when you cannot stay.
Yeah.
Christine, just quickly, because we're going to move on. So go ahead.
So I just have a quick question. So for me, just thinking more about things during this webinar, I realize, and maybe this is part of being a nurse or caregiver, but in combo, I found that before my mother passed away, I was able to make decisions like that I needed to make, important ones, or even let's say minor ones, without really hesitating. And I feel like now when I'm trying to make, especially after COVID, with all the, you know, unbelievable things that people went through, I have a hard time now, like trying to make a decision, whether it's something important, like trying to change maybe my career or where I'm living right now or my job. Where before I didn't have like this delay or hesitation or fear. I don't know if that's part of the grieving process or not, but I found that like that kind of changed in me. And I don't like it. I guess.
Well, I'm sure it's frustrating because you probably say to yourself, you used to be able to do this. Why can't you do it now? And maybe
True.
and maybe it's just because what you're considering just isn't right for you right now. So maybe it's not the time to think about a career change or moving. Maybe right now it's just being fully present in where you are and then giving yourself permission to revisit in a month or 2 months or 6 months.
That's probably true. I made a lot of very different life changes, had to make major decisions. That could be. I do feel that after COVID and everything that happened with COVID, I was looking prior to COVID to leave here. And every job I applied to didn't come through. And I ended up staying here for 3 more years. And someone said to me one time, maybe this was the best place for you to be.
You know, I think we sometimes think I should be, you know, maybe this idea of moving on means that physically I should be moving on, looking to live somewhere, looking for a career change. We're actually going to go into career change.
Yeah.
But there also is something about, there has been, during a caregiving experience, it's all about moving. We are emotionally moving from day to day. We are emotionally moving from decision to decision. We are emotionally moving our carry from a life stage to another life stage. It's all about moving during caregiving. And maybe it's okay after caregiving, we say, I'm not the happiest here, but I'm happy not to move. And that's okay.
Okay.
And then you could also say, you know what? I'm going to be okay right where I am until the beginning of the year. And then January 2nd is the day I'm going to say, what's a good move for me? And until then, I'm just going to be okay where I am. Do you remember What Not to Wear? It was a great show on TLC. Yeah, Stacey London.
Yes.
I can't remember his name, but Clinton, maybe.
Yes,
of-
love that show.
Yeah, one of the big messages that has stayed with me is buy the clothes that fit today. Because they were often working with individuals who would put off buying or wearing the right size because they wanted to lose weight. They wanted to look better. And they always say, buy what fits today. Look good today. Give yourself permission to look good today. And I thought, gosh, that's so fabulous. It's not about the size. It's about feeling good in what you're wearing. So we can look at that in terms of our life too. What fits in our life right now? And be okay with it, not judge it, not second guess it, not doubt it, but be okay with what's right now. Okay, so we're gonna segue. Everybody ready to move? I just talked about how we don't want to move, but I'm gonna move us into a conversation about our career. Because I do think that because caring for someone, and we talked about that vulnerable connection we create, caring for someone is a profound experience. And then we look for it after caregiving ends, I think. Not always, not everyone, but we might. And so then we look at our career and think, do I really want to make widgets the rest of my life? Do I really want to be in this position, in this environment, the rest of my career? So I'd love for you guys to really share, why do you think your caregiving experience might change your view of your career? Jennifer, how about for you?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, after my dad died, it was I was reevaluating everything, like, I had been in a job for 20 years. Do I really want to spend the rest of my life doing this? And when I cared for my mom, I had such a horrible experience, really. And I kept thinking, I wish there was someone who could help me in the way I needed help. And of course, there were people out there. I just couldn't find them in the moment because I was blinded by a lot of it. But I basically sort of created the program that I needed in the moment, to share with other people. And it really did kind of help me heal and move on. And but even in doing that, I had to recognize the limitations, because when I initially, you and I have talked about this, when I initially started working with caregivers, I had to back off because it was like too heavy. And I didn't see that in the moment. I was just telling myself, caregivers don't have money to spend. They're not going to purchase services with me. I'm going to move on to like other things. But it was really my own, like, I'm not ready for this yet. I'm still grieving my mom, so it's been a process. But I certainly, you had asked me what skills I figured out during caregiving, like resilience and how to solve problems and advocate for people, and accept things I couldn't control, like COVID in the middle of it all. And so that helped too.
You know what else? So I've spent 3+ decades working with family caregivers. Actually, had a career change when I was 27 or 28. So I moved from writing for trade magazines into really feeling like I wanted to do something that was purposeful and meaningful. And then, especially after my dad died, there was something about how horrible our experiences were that it really reignited my passion to change how hard a caregiving experience is, and then think through what are the parts of the experience that I want to ease for a family caregiver. And I think that's part of how our caregiving experience views our perspective on our career. Jennifer, you talked about it. It's so hard.
Mm.
And we are empathetic individuals that don't want others to suffer. And we see the suffering during caregiving, we think, I want to take that suffering away. And the other interesting insight that you had, Jennifer, was I'm still suffering.
Mhm.
And I want to heal my suffering before I help others who are suffering. And that's so wise and profound.
Mm. Yeah.
So I have a certified caregiving consultant training program. It's a caregiving coach program. Jennifer has gone through it. And I recommend, not everybody needs this recommendation, but I do say sometimes it's helpful to wait a couple years after your caregiving experience ends to really look at a program like that, because it takes that long, I think, to get your perspective about what happened to you, which helps you then be fully present to what is happening to another. You don't bring your stresses and struggles and add it to another's. You're completely there for someone else. Yeah, Christine.
I do want to add, and I totally agree with everything you're saying about this, with the career and caregiving experience and how it changes. I did not. I mean, when my mother, like I said, in 2013, none of this was really as extensive as it is now for caregivers, for even like the patient side, and what, case management. Like I said in the chat, I went into case management. I was not happy with what I was doing at the time, and a close friend, family friend I reconnected with, suggested it, and she had been doing it but went to something else. And I realized at that time, let's say in 2014, that there were options that I could have probably used, but no one brought it to our attention or my attention. And I think it's great that it has evolved, because there is more now for caregivers than there was at the time than when I was a caregiver. I mean, it was kind of like, I felt like I said earlier, the one in the family that was designated to take care of my mother. But like I said, that wasn't really how I felt about it, but that's how I think other people looked at it, including my siblings and family. But I do feel so good that people are recognizing that caregiving is an experience, that you need help, you need assistance, you need guidance. It's not just taking care of a sick loved one, friend, whatever. So I like I said, I'm glad to see that it has evolved, and it needs to evolve more, but none of the stuff that I learned about afterwards was either brought to our attention or available. So I'm glad to see it is changing, that's an important part that people need to recognize.
Absolutely. So Jennifer, you started talking about this, which is what's the expertise we gain? And I'd love for you guys to share in the chat room. What's an expertise that you really gained and honed during your caregiving experience that you think, wow? I will say one of the things that I think every family caregiver understands is crisis management.
Mhm.
And think about what the world needs right now, and that is compassionate crisis management. And that's the caregiving experience. You are compassionate while you are managing a crisis. That's an invaluable skill. What
It's
else?
interesting, Denise. I learned what I should have done, and I now teach people what to do that like I wish I would have done with my mom. She was going through, just an example, she was going through dementia, and I was very much in denial about it, and I wasn't doing what I should have done, like as far as communicating with her, living in her reality. I was fighting that and arguing with her. And now when I'm helping someone, I remind them, like, this is what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to argue, but just live there with them. So I think it was the things that, like, I wouldn't call them regrets, but things that I would have done differently, I'm now teaching.
Yeah, right. Because you understand how easy it is to lose patience, right? I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, how do we have the energy for so much patience? And again, when we think about what people tell us about self-care during caregiving, take a walk. Well, I just used up all my energy during this 20-minute conversation with my mom. I don't have energy to actually go out and walk because I am exhausted from that. And
Yeah.
unless you've had a conversation like that, you can't imagine how exhausting it is to remain patient, to remain pragmatic, to stay focused on, okay, let's really think this through, Mom. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. So I think crisis management, but I also think brainstorming. We also have this ability to think on our feet, right? We can turn on a dime to pivot to another idea or suggestion. Yeah. What other skills can you think of? I want to mention the roles we play, which tie into skills, but I also think we become a family historian. So we're the ones that spend the most time with our carees, which means that we hear the stories. Something that I used to really worry about is getting all the details of my parents' life, like every particular date, every detail. And what I realized is I had the stories, and most important, I had their essence. I could describe who they were. I can describe their values and priorities. And that became more important than on this date, my mom graduated from college. It was more the essence of who they are as people. And I found that helpful to have that little bit of a pivot. So, family historian, conflict manager, like think about all the conflicts you manage and how often you manage them. Consensus builder, you're trying to get people to actually agree to a decision. The comforter, the nurturer. Tons of expertise. So, how does this expertise become what we use in our career? Yeah, Pamela was running a small business. That's how I always think about a caregiving experience. It's running a small business. Absolutely. And the reason that I like to also position that is that you're running a small business is that as a small business owner, I do well when I have a coach and when I have a virtual assistant. And that's what I think for every family caregiver, coach, virtual assistant. That's what you need to run an empire. That's what you need to run a small business.
Denise, I just want to let you know I put in the chat the link for the UMAP. If I could just say a little bit about that and how that affects. In my search for what to do next after caregiving, and when I was stepping away from it because I just needed to finish the initial grief, I found a program called, it's really an assessment called UMAP, which it kind of takes your strengths, your values, your skills, and your personality and interests, and it combines it into this document, and then you can have a coach take you through it. And it like gave me such direction and let me know, like, the things that I thought were negative about me, it gave me reasons for why I did what I did. And it gave me a lot of calm and peace about the whole thing, is really what it is. And it made me realize that I was on the right track because everything I was doing was part of what my strengths were. And so I've now found a way to incorporate this into my work with caregivers after caregiving, when we're feeling lost and we don't know what to do. And we're just like, do I stay? Do I go? What? And so I put a link in. I'm going to do a drawing for a free UMAP. And then anyone who's interested, I'm also providing a discount for any attendees today. So, and I'll be sending more information about it as well.
I think it's so helpful to talk out the impact on our career because of our caregiving experience with someone who has had their career impacted because of their caregiving experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of us are taking leaves where some people have to quit, I just kind of figured out.
A lived experience is invaluable. It's invaluable. I connect regularly. I'm starting to whisper this, but I'll just say it out loud because I'm trying not to be politically incorrect, but I connect regularly with organizations who serve family caregivers. And I always can tell when the organization is led by someone who hasn't had a personal caregiving experience, because they create products and services based on an assumption about the experience rather than based on the knowledge of the caregiving experience. Okay. Let's just quickly define success, and then we're going to move into our last workshop where we're going to actually get you ready for next. So Jennifer, what does success look like for you today?
I think running my business in a way that works for me, really finding the niche of where I'm meant to be. And success, there's a financial success that I'm still working on. There's a personal success in that, but kind of bringing it all together. I think I'm finally almost there, and it's a good feeling.
Yeah, it's an awesome feeling. So if you'd like to share how you define success, please post in the chat room. And what's great about our own definitions of success could be that they change from day to day. So what success is for a Monday might be very different than what success is for a Saturday. What success is in October could be very different than what it is in June. And I like the idea that we can really be flexible about success. And I think too, sometimes what I like to do is think about, if I'm connecting in a meeting with someone, I'll think about, what does success in this meeting look like for me? What does success hosting this workshop look like for attendees and for me? So we can also apply our definition of success to situations, relationships, experiences. Okay, so let's wrap it up with figuring out what in the world is next. Okay, here we go. Oops, you know what? I'm not ready quite yet. Hold on, everybody. Okay. So what is next? We have talked about a caregiving experience in a way that almost is a little separate than our after caregiving experience. And we just had a conversation about the expertise that we developed. And I think we can use this expertise, this wisdom, these insights that we gained during our caregiving experience to guide our next steps. So our wisdom and insights did so much for our carees during our caregiving experience. Let's turn it into helping ourselves. So we've got it. Let's use it for ourselves right now. My parents were devout Catholics, and my mom was a member of a guild at church, and she was a member of this guild for 40 years. And when she was declining, I could see that it was getting a little harder for her to attend her monthly guild meeting. So I would go with her. And then they recruited me to join the guild. So then I became a member of the guild. I'm still a member of the guild, even though my mom died. And these guild members are all in their late 80s and 90s. It's actually an inspiring group of women, very committed to service. We had a guild meeting with one of our priests last year. And honestly, I thought, oh, this is just, okay, this is just going to be a bore. Like, what am I going to learn from this priest? And he was talking about vocation within the Catholic Church. And he is a priest who focuses on helping young adults consider becoming a priest or a nun, and then guiding them through that process. So again, you could think, what, why, what? But as these devout Catholic women, they're very invested in the future of the church. And so this priest is helping the future of the church. What was interesting is the process he shared during the vocational campaign he has. It was fascinating. And so I used his process for this workshop. I changed it a little bit, but when he's working with a young adult who's considering becoming a priest, he has them think about 3 different categories of their vision for their future. And for us, I think about it as capacity, completion, and zest. Now, capacity is one that he used, and I thought it was fascinating to think about what that is. So here's capacity. And Jennifer, you talked about capacity when you talked about, I have to support family caregivers. And then you were like, well, family caregivers aren't going to pay for it. And what you really realized was you didn't have the capacity at that moment because you still wanted to take care of yourself. So capacity is an important piece for us to look at, and it involves what's possible for me right now. What's possible for me today? Actually, Christine, we talked about capacity as it relates to your decisions. So capacity to make a decision isn't something that I have the energy to do right now, and that's okay. So when we think about capacity, we can break it down into energy, time, resources, budget. If I forgot something, please post it in the chat room. So if you were to add anything to these 4, please post in the chat room. That would be helpful. So we can be really generous with ourselves around capacity. I don't have the energy for it right now. Okay, then it's not right now. I don't have the time for that. Okay, then it's not right now. Again, capacity changes. So the energy you have right now will change. You'll have days where you have more, you'll have days when you have less, and that's okay. So what's possible considering your capacity? And again, it's energy, time, resources, budget. Something else around everything is temporary. It used to make me really crazy during caregiving, but it also used to make me really crazy when I had a lot of financial stress. Financial stress feels like forever. And I want to let you know, financial stress isn't forever. You will work through it. You will figure it out. Maintain the path to keep going. The budget you have today will get better if you feel like there's not enough, and you will figure it out. Oh, emotional capacity. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, emotional capacity. Right. Absolutely. I'm going to add that. Thank you for that. That's really important. Completion. I took this from the priest too. So what's my work that needs to be completed? So we talked a little bit about the completion with Linda and Danielle. So what's the completion as it relates to the estate? What's the completion about reconciling with old friends, for instance, that you felt like, I just couldn't keep up? And then maybe it's not possible to reconcile. And then gaining that completion about, I'm going to let those relationships go and it's okay. What's the completion around something you've held that no longer serves you? It could be a belief, it could be a habit, it could be a ritual, it could be a schedule. So maybe you're living a life today that worked for you a year ago. How can you release that and say, my life right now is about this? Closure around caregiving can include possessions, objects. Jennifer, I wonder if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about where you are with possessions and bankers boxes and other boxes.
I was just typing in the chat. Well, what I was thinking about is my mom's ashes, actually. And it's been 3 years in December, and I still have her ashes in my bedroom. And we have a niche at a cemetery, and I have not taken her there because I don't have the right thing to write on the tombstone. And because when we did it for my dad, I feel like it was the perfect thing. Like, we found the perfect way to memorialize him. And I have not found the perfect thing yet for my mom. And I'm quickly realizing that there is no perfect thing. And I just need to decide and choose and take her there. But it's 3 years, and I still have so many of her things. I have letters, 500 letters from my mom and dad writing to each other when my dad was in Vietnam, that I want to memorialize. So lots of things that I still need to do.
And that can feel overwhelming, and
Yeah.
it can easily move us in a place of judgment of, why is this taking me so long?
Yeah.
And again, we can set the timeline. So if it's taking this long, it's requiring this much thought, this much perspective, this much attention.
Yeah.
And again, it's temporary. So we can think about right now, this is where everything stays. And when I know the better place, I'll move it to the better place. Okay, so that's completion. And then this is the one that I changed a little bit from what the priest shared. And I added zest. And in positive psychology, they talk about the 4 traits of someone who is in a good place in their life. And one of the traits is zest. And I think zest is what's hard to keep during a caregiving experience. And I think it takes us time to figure out, how do I recreate and reconnect with zest? So here are some ideas about zest, but please, if you see or think of something else, please post about it in the chat room. So it's, what work excites me? Who do I want to work with? And if you think, I don't know that person, you know the traits and qualities of that person. So you could start writing out, this is who I want to work with, and write out who they are and why you want to work with them. What do I enjoy talking about? Which conversations intrigue me? What's the difference I want to make? If you guys were to describe what zest feels like in one word, what would be the one word? And feel free to post about it in the chat. So when I think about zest, I think about feeling alive. I feel like I am 100% engaged in the moment. When I think about zest, I feel youthful or ageless. Maybe that's another way to describe it too. I feel fulfilled when I'm in a place of zest. So you can pay attention to those feelings, and then you can think, oh my gosh, this is zest. I'm experiencing it right now. Pay attention. Yeah, thank you, Christine. Truly enjoying experiences again. And Jennifer has written hopeful. Yeah, hope, right. I love this idea of hopeful too as zest, because sometimes you can feel like too many questions about how do I manage this? How do I go? How do I move forward? What do I do? That can really deplete us of feeling hopeful, and zest fills us with hope. Oh my gosh, I know what's possible. I can see a way forward. Okay, so that's zest. Oh, Sharon. Yes, that's an orange peel. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon, for bringing the cooking piece of zest in. Yes, it's an orange peel. Fresh, alive, vibrant, clean. Yes. And I have a citrus bliss essential oil that I like to diffuse because it feels so energizing, because it's such a beautiful scent, right? Yeah. So it's interesting, if we think about zest, it really touches all our senses. It can be, what am I tasting right now that feels zestful? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I touching? What am I smelling? That's zest. What's that little something that just feels like, wow, that gives that moment a lot of flavor? It's all about the flavor of the moment. It's zest. Okay, so we use these tools, which we call caregiving wheels, in our work as consultants and facilitators and guides. Those are individuals who have completed the different training programs that I offer. So I'd love for you to share in the chat room, what's a word that stands out to you when you think about what's next? How about for you, Jennifer? What's a word?
I would say purpose
Yeah.
and fun.
Yeah, fun. Yeah, fun. Fun. Something that I have done with my sister a couple times since my dad died was take a Monday afternoon and meet for lunch and window shopping. And the last time we did it was last week, and I said to her, we need to do this every month. And she was like, sounds good to me. And that's fun. A year ago, I would not have been able to figure out how to do that. But now I figured out how to do that. Decide and fun. Okay, Christine. All right. Yeah. Healing and helping others. Thank you, Amelia. That's beautiful. Yeah, purpose and peace. Thank you, Pamela, because I look at that word peace and I think, wow, it means so much these days for so many reasons. Yeah. I'm curious, when you guys are at peace, what does that feel like? Feel free to share that in the chat room. What does being at peace feel like? And if I think about it from my perspective, safe and connected. Thank you, Sharon. Safe and connected. That's peace. Yeah, I love that. I also feel if I'm at peace, I'm in acceptance. I'm not riddled with regret. I'm not trying to figure out how do I manage this worry. I'm not second guessing myself.
Denise, I just want to say peace for me too has been my nervous system
Right.
calming down. Like I can turn my phone off now if I want, you know, like I'm not always on. And it took a long time for that to calm down.
Yeah, the relationship that we have with our phone during caregiving is really intense. And I recently did go somewhere without my phone. I said, you don't have to bring it. And it created so much anxiety for me that I actually went home a little earlier to get my phone. I thought, I'm not quite ready. Not quite ready. I still sleep with it. I haven't turned it off at night. I'm not quite ready, but I'm getting there. It's just temporary. Just temporary. Yeah, I love that, Pamela, you are giving yourself the authority to flourish. Last year at our Beginning Again retreat, Heather was one of our presenters, and she said, we can give ourselves authority. And I think about that as it relates to flourish. Giving ourselves the authority to flourish, meaning we don't have to ask anyone else for the approval. We don't have to doubt if we've earned the right to flourish. We can just give ourselves to flourish in this moment, flourish in this afternoon, flourish in the morning, flourish at night. Okay. So that's thinking through what's next. And if you have one word that can guide you. So if you decide, you know what's next for me is peace, then you can think about what's the peaceful habit I create for myself. So if you understand what peace feels like for you, you can create the habit that brings you peace. And again, we are creating new habits for ourselves after caregiving ends. So if it feels like, I want to have peace around not bringing my phone everywhere and you're not ready for it, then you could say, I'm not ready. I'll try that again in a couple months. And it could be instead that peace for you means lighting a candle, saying a prayer, and closing your eyes. It could mean closing your eyes, lighting your candle, and having a vision of your caree enjoying whatever it is that happens after death. In full health, in full love, that is a sense of peace for us. They are surrounded by love. They are a love energy. Pamela is sharing that her phone background says, may your soul be unburdened and at peace. Seek joy. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. I'm going to repeat it because I think that's how we close our time together. May your soul be unburdened and at peace. Seek joy. And I would just add, seek and receive joy. When it shows up, take it. When it shows up, don't decide it's for someone else or for another time. It has shown up at the right time for you, so you can go ahead and receive it. Okay, thanks everybody for being with us. Just quickly, a couple resources for you. We have a community called Caring Our Way. It's easy to join. It's just caringourway.com. And we have a special space for after caregiving ends. We have a course that's 6 parts. That's called Beginning Again After Caregiving Ends. I have a book by that same title, and it follows the book. And you actually get a free PDF of the book as part of that course. We have another class called Flashlight Camp, and I talk about how I figured out my career change when I was 27 or 28. I saw a flashlight that I thought God had shined onto a want ad. So I tell you how to find your flashlight moment. And then we have Writing After Healing, which is just a very simple course with writing prompts. And then our Certified Caregiving Advocate course is free in November. I forgot to put the date, but it's November 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And Sharon, yes, I was thinking about how do we stay connected? So what I'm going to do is create a special space for us in our Beginning Again retreat section of Caring Our Way, so you can post updates and stay connected, because I would love for that to happen. So what I'll do is when I have the archive of the event posted on Wednesday, I'll send an email out to everybody, invite you to that space, and invite you to stay connected. I think that would be fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to ask everybody who's joined live just to stay for 1 minute for information about how to get CEUs and how to complete our evaluation. So those who have been watching the archive, thank you so much for joining us. Stay connected to us on Caring Our Way. And for the archive, if you look in the show notes, I'll include the link to stay connected to us. Okay, thanks so much. And those who are here live, please stay for just 1 more minute.